Let me introduce Hannah in just a second, a little bit.
Thank you.
She owns hardware development and operations in totality for Google. Okay? Big job. One of the Magnificent Seven. You know, I love reading about the Magnificent Sevens.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that in the race for that. But Hannah, we really look forward to learning from you today. Okay.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's really an honor to meet you. I've heard so much about you throughout the years from Monique and others, so thank you, and really looking forward to learning from you too with your incredible career. And we thought maybe to just introduce what we do, we'd play a little video if that works before we get started.
That would be great.
All right.
Absolute bananas, yeah.
I got it going on right now. Got it going on right now. What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it? So go and strike a pose like we do it for the camera. I got it going on right now. What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it? Got it going on right now. What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it?
Absolute bananas.
Hit it with the bass one time. I'm about to make you go and lose your mind. This right here, yup, that's super fresh. Expect that real good and nothing less. I got it going on right now. What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it?
Absolute bananas, yeah.
Pretty fun. Hopefully that wakes everybody up.
So, Hannah, Google, we all know, is a search giant. I mean,
Yes.
you dominate search and all the information behind it to enable that. Tell us about the hardware. Why the move? Why the investment?
What were we thinking?
Yeah, what are you thinking? You know, this is...
Yeah, no, perfect. That's a great question. Look, I think, as you said, right, people think of Google, they think of search, they think of Gmail, they think of photos, they think of all these software, incredible experiences that we use every day. I'm sure everybody here, maybe with a few exceptions, we'll talk to you afterwards, use Google literally every day. Android, which is the OS for phones and for mobile, started at Google 17 years ago. So it's a long time ago. It's in 2008. And about really more like 11 years ago, so quite a few years after Android had started, the idea for us were two thoughts. One was that if we really wanted to make that software experience exceptional, and Android is the most used OS in the world. In the US, that's hard to see because most people are on an iPhone, but in the world, that's 100% true. I'm an international, I'm from Costa Rica originally, so I go there and it's all Android as an example. But what you see there is that for us to really make that exceptional to the user, Google has one philosophy, which is always trying to really center on that user. We really needed, like if we had hardware, it would really help us make that much better. Right. But I think many people thought, you'd be crazy. Why would you enter that battle? Apple's so good at what they do. They're exceptional at what they do. Why would you do that? And I think that was a big decision for us to do that. But we did it because we thought two things were true. One, our product would be much better on the software side if we had that. And most importantly, and I give a ton of credit to our CEO, Sundar, who basically had been talking about this wave of AI coming 10 years ago. And I think 10 years ago, people are like, what is he talking about, really? And I remember I joined that, and I didn't really understand it fully. But the journey with Pixel, which are our phones, has been purposely built for AI. And as you've seen in the last 3 years, it just landed, exploded. And so as you saw in that video, we have all these really incredible capabilities, and we'll talk more deeply. These are fun ones, but there's some really useful ones too. And it was really to create a phone that was purposely built from the ground up, silicon, software, hardware for AI. And that's where we are. So we launched our Pixel 10 on August 28th of this year. And it, for the first time, had our fully custom silicon Tensor G5. And it's been a crazy startup ride and journey. So that's how we ended up getting in hardware.
Can you say a little bit more about that August the 28th announcement?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have this as every tech company does, once a year they do this big announcement of all of their products that they're releasing. And we did ours on August 28th in New York. It was hosted by Jimmy Fallon, actually, so it's pretty funny. Big departure for a tech company. Turns out he's a lot funnier than we are. But anyway, it was the most watched event for Google in its history. That includes Google I/O. It includes anything ever seen worldwide. And it was a huge moment for us because it was our 10th phone, and it had our custom silicon, which we had been working. You know how long silicon takes. We had been working on that for, boy, I want to say like 8 years to get to that moment. And then we had all these new capabilities with AI that were enabled by Tensor and were enabled by our work with Google DeepMind. So it was, at least from my perspective, and I think many of the leaders around the table really feel like this was a unique moment where it really finally came together. And this dream that we've been working on for 10 years, fits in your pocket now, and it's amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
It's super. I've got to go see one.
Yeah, you do. I'll take you. We have to go to one of our stores.
Absolutely. If you think about the slides I showed, the risks that we're all facing, how are you all evolving, your whole development, especially in the hardware space? We know you're going to lead software with the search and stuff. Yeah. But what are the risks there, and how are you dealing with them?
I learned a lot from your slides, actually, and it's good to know that, sometimes you have to step back and really look at things and you see them in a different way. But if you look at the 2015 to 2020 were such a wonderful time. I really wish I would have savored it more because that felt crazy at that time. But you hit 2020 and it has just been, I have this saying at work all the time, if I could go 6 weeks without some crazy thing that you never expected happening, I would feel so much better. And it's been the pandemic, the geopolitical issues that we talked about, the, silicon crisis, the wars that have been disruptive, the tariffs, how do you put AI in addition to your own journey as a business, which, for example, just to give you a couple of examples for us, was trying to build a silicon supply chain from scratch at Google. Let me say that again. A silicon supply chain at Google. That is not easy to do.
Yeah.
And then, for example, having to go from, an ODM model to a full CM, fully designed, mobile supply chain. So, what I have felt is that the way that we have dealt with it is, one, you do need to lead. You do need to, if you are waiting for things to happen for you,
it's not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen. And so the amount of energy that you need to have is a lot. And, you made me laugh because you were saying, in all your years, you never saw this. Well, I called one of my mentors. I'll never forget. It was in early 2022. And I said, look, I feel like maybe I'm missing something. It can't be this hard. What's going on? What advice do you have for me? What am I missing? He's like, kiddo, you're on your own. I'd never seen anything like this. And I was like, well, that was a short call. So, all I can say is...
I'm going to try that with Monique.
Yeah, exactly. So, what I say now is we really, and I really mean this, we have plan A, plan B, plan C. I'll give you a very specific example with tariffs. We do manufacturing in multiple places, but not in all. We haven't completely regionalized because we're still kind of ramping. And we now, in every location, we've basically done a ton of capability to be able to import and export, even though we may have no intention to do it from that country, because you're one, true social post away from, all the rules changing or all the math changing. And so you basically have to put all these A plan, B plan, C plan, D plan, and the number of times we end up in a C or D plan is huge. And that was not true 7 years ago. It just wasn't. And that's expensive too. And what's also interesting is how you think about your talent changes when you have to sort of maneuver that way. So it's, you wake up and it's a new adventure every day. That's for sure. Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple of times how you're building the hardware to enable AI from the very beginning across your whole system. Yeah. What does that mean? I mean, what is the advantage you're trying to create with that move?
Look, so I'll start with the user perspective and then, we can delve into the supply chain. From the user perspective, our belief is, I think some people think of AI and it feels like this overwhelming concept. Maybe they're a bit afraid of it, or maybe they're hoping it goes away. But the reality is that you've seen this has been coming for a while, right? When you're typing your email and it auto-completes for you, or when you're using Translate, or when we're using fancy features in phone, it is using LLMs. It is using machine learning. It is using AI to do those things. What we've tried to really focus is to stay on the user. Like, what does the user really want? What does it need? What can we predict? What sort of needs they're coming? I'll give you an example. We have one of the things we released in August was the Magic Cube. It's one of our features. How many times have you been this literally just happened to me coming here, right? You're driving here. My husband texts me. He's like, hey, can you remind me what flight you're on the way back home? Because we're trying to figure out dinner for tonight. I have that information. My email has that information. But maybe we're driving, maybe we're in a conference call, so he sends me the text. And what do you normally do? You're like, okay, I know it's in my email. Let me go to my email. Let me search. Let me figure it out. Okay, there it is. I'm going to copy paste. Then I'm going to put it into text. Then I'm going to put it in the text, and then I'm going to hit send. It's a lot of steps, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is that you can have a Magic Queue that it gets that. Of course, you need to give permissions for these, but it's all on device, so it's not going to the cloud and back. It's all on device, and it will just go search your emails for you and auto-suggest it, because it knows today is today. It knows you're flying because you have an email that says you're flying, or a calendar that says you're flying, and it'll just prompt it, and I just hit send. So it is little things like that, or the things that you saw here around creativity, or how you do that in everyday transactions that make a huge difference. I can tell you when I'm at a party anywhere, and this is undoubtedly the case, I'll be in an event for my kids' school, and I'll be taking pictures. By the end of that event, 100% of the time, I will not have my phone with me because some parent took it oh, no, I want to use that feature. I want to use that phone because it has the better camera or the better features on how to take the picture that you want for your kids. So all of these happen for us because we're trying to be hyper-focused on, as a consumer, right? We can talk about data center, we can talk about YouTube and other areas, but as a consumer for mobile, what we want is to be able to put these helpful, user-centric capabilities that we know we use every day, but you're just so used to them being irritant that you don't even notice them anymore.
Now, if you look at your announcement in August 28 and the vision of everything being focused on the consumer, coming from a consumer products background, we say all the time, and A.G. Lafley, the CEO of Procter, actually invented this: the consumer is boss, not me, not you, not any one of us. The consumer is his boss. You got to win the two moments of truth. When they decide to buy a product, they buy you, and when they can take it home and use it, you win.
They keep it, exactly.
They keep it, and said, really, if we lose our sight on that.
Yes.
So what y'all have changed, it sounds like it's really becoming truly passionate about the consumer.
Yes.
At a different level. Is that true?
That's 100% true. And I think the reason we're able to do it now is because we do have the entire stack. Whereas before you were trying to do this, but there's dependencies, as you know, right, between hardware and software. And
Absolutely.
Of course there are. And so you can't really tune it fully. You can't really have these experiences. Like this experience of Magic Queue as an example, or even this, you have to have the silicon, you have to have the software, you have to have, the AI deep research that Google has spent 20 years doing, All of those have to come together for a specific event, and that's hard. And that's from a user perspective, right? How you use it in supply chain, different story. But.
So talk to us a little bit about what investment are you having to make in the supply chain to enable AI?
Yeah, that's
because you look at the 2.6, and what I've heard from others, about 350 billion of the 2.6, which I was shocked. I thought it would be a much higher percentage of the spend right now.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I don't know the full numbers for the U.S., but I mean, just ours alone, it's like the commitment we made is 450 billion, right? It's crazy. And I think you said Apple's 500, right? So a lot of the Magnificent Seven are sort of in that range. For us, and I'll just give you some example. Look, and for those of you, and I think you made a really call to action for everybody in the room today. AI is happening, just like the internet happened. So you're either with it or you're going to be behind. It's not going away.
Yeah.
And there is this statistic by the Meeker report. If you haven't heard about that, it's a really good report on AI. And it was saying the number of language, LLM users in 3 years is the same as the internet took 23 years. So let me say that again. The number of users in the internet for 23 years is the same as LLM usage in 3 years. So think about the factor of that. It's crazy. So for us, when we think about the supply chain, we're thinking about, first of all, foundation. The foundation for us is data. If you don't, and we can deep dive into that. What do I mean by that? But if you don't have good data, it's like putting really fancy windows on a bad foundation. It just is not going to work. You can't get what you want out of it when you do that. The second one is that, LLMs are amazing. You can go to Gemini, you can ask lots of things, but, Gemini doesn't understand the Mondelez business model, doesn't understand the Google business model. And by the way, the Google business model is many things. There's a YouTube business model, there's a data center business model, there is a consumer hardware business model, there's a search business model. So when you take this, you're trying to use it for a purpose, you need to actually give it the context of the business. So your data needs to be clean. You need to train it to basically know your business. And then you can experiment and actually do things. So for example, for us, some of the key things we're using it with, we're using a ton for forecasting, a ton for predictive events that are coming, a lot for giving consumers and users information about what's going to be used. We're using it a lot for quality. We're starting to use it for market intelligence. The approach we have taken is if you stack your work, right? And there's so much, we just talked about how much work there is right now. You stack your work. What are these huge piles that just grow exponentially as you add users? It just like grows and grows and grows and grows. And how do you sort of beat down some of those, some like total area under the curve of work? And so if you then say, okay, these are the 4 areas I'm gonna be working on, then that's where you start training the context of the model to be able to do that. A model's not gonna be able to know every piece of your business. They're just not there yet. And the other thing I would say is from a human perspective and an employee perspective, we've had to really change it because it could be that you say, okay, my biggest work under the area curve is, I don't know, order management. Let's just pick an easy one. Order management. Okay, great. And I tried my LLM and I felt like I had, a great, data set and it just failed. And we had that. We had a situation where that happened. But 6 months later, we tried it again, and the models had evolved a lot. And it's a bit like the internet capabilities. When you started, the first time you tried something on the internet, I'm sure it was frustrating. Absolutely. I mean, I was pretty young even when that happened, and I remember being frustrated. But a year later, 6 months later, you would try the same thing, and it was like an exponentially incredible experience. So I feel like we have a lot of people who've tried AI, and they're like, tried it, failed, done with that movie. And you cannot, like this is what you were saying, you just can't be in that mode. You have to try, maybe fail, try again, maybe fail, try again, and it'll work. It will work at some point, and you will see real gains from it.
Well, Dave Clark's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He was on the board at the University of Tennessee with me for many years.
He and I are on the same board at C100, yeah.
Yeah, and Dave's a great guy. And I've talked to him before about this whole issue of when he developed product to people instead of people to go get product for all the robots and everything. Said, how many times did you have to test?
Right.
Before the robot to people beat badly the people to
Robot.
product, for product. And he said, 30-some.
Yeah, yeah.
We failed 30-some times.
Yes.
But it's the foundation of their, business.
And
He had a vision he would not give up on because he knew he was going to give the company a demonstrable competitive advantage. For those of you who don't know Dave Clark, he was the head of supply chain
for Amazon.
For Amazon when Bezos left and Andy took the top job.
Yeah.
He became the CEO of Amazon Consumer.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's well known. He's probably the most famous supply chain leader in our lifetime, in our career. But imagine being so committed and having such a clear vision of what had the clarity and not giving up on it to your testing and trying and failing and going right back at it the next day.
Yeah.
I used to go to UT and sit on the board there. Dave Clark would be on one side, and Greg Smith, who was the head of supply chain, also a University of Tennessee graduate, was on the other side. Well, these two people, you can imagine, there's not two greater competitors with each other. But great people, great leaders.
And I would say that the thing about this is that, and I think you talked about this, there's either going to be chaos or clarity.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, I remember I just had this conversation with my head of IT. So the head of IT works for me. And this was probably 3 years ago. So like the whole OpenAI ChatGPT broke up and, sort of started happening November of 2023, right? And I remember in that moment, we were having this discussion. We're like, here it is. This is the big wave we've been waiting for. It's here. And you're either going to be at the tip of it or, you're going to get hit by it. And thankfully for us, and I think this is a good question you should all have, is we had been doing that hard work on data. And data is the foundation. I'll give you an example. For us, we have worked, this may sound really trivial, it was a ton of work. It's one of the hardest works I've done, actually, is we have 18 data sets that are all in a data lake for us that are highly curated, that we spend a lot of time making sure they're right. I don't know how many of you remember maybe in the, 2015 timeframe, you would try to do this data cleanup and they'd be like, oh, well, who's gonna be the guardian or the sponsor for this? And they're gonna check every morning and they're gonna go make sure that there's no garbage coming into the data, and it was manual, and then that person took vacation and garbage got in and you had to start over and people abandoned those efforts. Well, for us right now, we have those and we train every 7 days. We retrain our model with the latest data coming so the model can tell you, hey, there is this outlier coming in. Is it real? Why is this happening? Or is it actually, is it a real data point?
So it's a system
it's self-healing
that
kind of
accuracy as well.
Yes, exactly. And so now we have, this core data system, but rather than depending on these archaic systems that we all tried but failed, it will retrain itself every 7 days. And let me tell you, it works. And so I today can go to my computer right now and in chat, I could chat you, maybe. I could chat Dave, maybe. But I can also get into our data lake and ask pretty much any question from there, like you would for Gemini or a ChatGPT, and get the answer immediately. And I have very good confidence that it's right because we have it checking and retraining itself every 7 days. That's an example.
Let's go to the clarity question.
Yeah.
What are you doing as a leader to provide clarity in the whole hardware space right now?
So for us, we have the benefit that it's really clear what our current goals are. So we've been on this 10-year journey to create
10 years.
10 years. 10 years. Nothing gets hard. Building hardware is hard, and I think we all say that. 10 years. We now have what we believe is the right product. And for us right now, it's all about scale. So
Scale.
It's absolutely about scale. So for us right now, we are hyper-focused on two things. One is what are all those risks that could possibly prevent us from scaling? And how do we spend a lot of time on our network. Where is it going? Where do we want to build it? How many places do we want to build one thing in? it's so hard right now because the world is so fluid, right? So we spend a lot of time on that. And then we're spending a lot of time on, if we scale, what are the things that are going to break? If I had to double the output right now in the next 2 years, what breaks and in what order? And how can I do that in a much more efficient way, given the tools that I have, which I have a lot of really fun tools. Automation is a huge focus for us because of the new tools we have with AI. We have opportunities to do automation that you never thought possible. Like 3 years ago, if you had told me some of the things we have today, I mean, we pushed it. We were driving for that vision of automation, but it's further than I thought it would be.
Okay. Let's take
Yeah.
2 questions from the audience. So
Sure,
is there
absolutely.
anyone have a question on anything for her? I cannot believe this. We've never been this quiet this long.
Oh, it's 8:30 in the morning. We'll see. I think we have one.
Do we have a question? Please.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for the time to ask a question. So what are you doing to upscale your workforce?
To upscale what?
Upskill your workforce.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talked about we have several generations, and you referred to that in your opening as well. We have people who are very native in this, right? They've grown up with these tools. They're developing these tools. They're at the tippy top edge of it. And then there's other people who frankly have never seen it and maybe are a little bit afraid of it. What we've sort of looked at is in every single expertise area, if you will, what is the minimum we need to do? Google, by the way, this is Google we're talking about. Keep this in mind. I mean, Google has Google DeepMind, which is like widely regarded as the top AI think house of the entire world, right? Yet, every single employee at Google is required to take a training on AI. Required. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you are required to take a training on AI. In addition to that, for the different pieces within our team, so if you are in planning, you're going to take some modules. If you are in production, you're going to take some modules. If you are in quality, you're going to take different things. Because how we're deploying some of the solutions impact those jobs truly on a daily basis right now. So I do think it is a really great question that you're asking, because it is an investment that a company needs to make. It is an investment that you need to sort of see that. And we have a model that we learned from, which was we went through the internet. And when the internet came, it was the same situation, right? And I think we do need to take some pages from there. But the notion that this will just self-absorb and be okay, I don't think it's the right one. I absolutely think we need to be deliberate in how we're training the team and deliberate in how we grow those skill sets, for sure. Which, by the way, one of the best ways to do that is to rotate people too. And I know many of us grew up in companies where rotations was a really good thing. I think some of the Magnificent Seven are not great at that, and I think we're learning we have to do that. So it's a big change. It's a big change in culture.
Well, one thing we talk about at University of Tennessee is there's 3 elements of skill. You've got reskill,
Yeah.
so strengthen what you already know, upskill, which is what you're asking about, and then new skill.
Right.
And when you do list them out, there's some very different things you would do when you're thinking it from all 3 elements. I'll give you one last thing. We're out of time, and we could go all day. But I will tell you, Sean Trainer is the head of supply chain for HP.
Yep.
He did a presentation with me for the NAMES meeting in April. How many computers do you think he moved from being produced in Asia to North America in 5 months? 21 million.
Wow.
He moved 21 million production
Wow.
from Asia to here. And I said, how'd you do it? He said, clarity.
Yeah.
So he and I are actually doing a presentation at the University of Tennessee for their forum and master's class on this whole issue of the tariffs, its impact, and what we're doing. And he's sharing the story of how did you do it? You know, well, he knew it had to be done.
I got to tell
And
you.
he was going to be on the offense to get ahead of the other Magnificent Sevens, you know.
We've had to move every single product we produce has been moved in the last 18 months.
Did you hear that? Moved every...
It's
product
crazy.
they produced in the last 10
It is crazy. You know,
It's
things
crazy.
you used to, I mean, I know I need to go, but I will just say this, like there are times when we would, you know, you would have we're gonna move this product, and then you have, do you move it in NPI? Do you move it in sustaining? Let's move it in sustaining. This is gonna take, you know, 15 months to do. Those times are over. It's, you have to have the foundation and the, like, some of the key workflows in IT and in purchasing and in everything so that you can move a lot faster because you never know. Like now I think we're stable, but like I said, you know, the rules, what's gonna happen with Section 232? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna impact me big time. So what can I do to pre-prepare some of it so I don't have to do the whole work all the time? And that's really where we are. So you have to have that clarity of like, you're in a battle. That's the first point of clarity.
For sure.
We're in a battle right now. And we're in
are.
a, and
It's a race. It's a race like the globalization.
Yes.
But it's a different race.
it's a different race.
I think this one's even more challenging.
It's trickier.
It really is trickier. I want to thank Google. They've been present. I think this is the third in a row. Every time you've done a great job.
Thank you so much.
You know, and wonderful. I often ask Monique, I said, what's different about Google than Procter & Gamble, where,
Yeah.
you know, she and I worked together for so long. And she goes, in Google, everybody codes. Everybody's a coder. And they all believe they're the best coder in the world.
They do. They do.
Yeah, they do.
One of my funniest, I'll just leave you with this very funny story. We're still owned by our owners, right? So Sergey Brin and Larry Page. And I had the benefit of meeting Larry Page early on in my tenure at Google. And he was joking. This is a joke. But he was on his bicycle on the way to work. By the way, somebody almost ran him over. I'm like, that would have been an expensive accident. But anyway, so he's running on his bike to work. And he had a flat tire. So he gets off his bike. He's like, software should really be able to fix that. It's pretty cute.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. We're going to have you over at Google. I'd love to have you over.
That would be great.